This episode is sponsored by global sports and entertainment agency, Octagon. For more than 40 years, Octagon has delivered award-winning campaigns and led sponsorship strategy, experiential programs, and athlete partnerships for brands like the Home Depot, Delta Airlines, MasterCard, Nutrafol, and NBA 2K. The agency drives impact across women's sports and major global events such as the World Cup and the Olympics. Learn more at octagon.com and on social media at Octagon.
In 2022, as the world was opening up after the pandemic, Australia needed what the country's tourism CMO describes as a broad, welcoming message to the world to remind them what they know and loved about Australia. So Tourism Australia took a new marketing approach, launching its Come and Say G'day campaign, which was crafted to cross borders, using local talent in the US, China, India, and elsewhere to convince folks to take a trip down under. Hello, my name is EJ Schultz, news editor of Ad Age. And on this week's edition of the Marketer's Brief podcast, Tourism Australia's Chief Marketing Officer Susan Coghill updates us on the effort. She discusses how the organization went about selecting its ad talent, which includes Robert Irwin, son of the famous crocodile hunter and a recent winner of Dancing with the Stars. Plus, she also shares her perspective on broader tourism trends and how her organization views more people using AI to make travel plans. And now, my conversation with Susan. Welcome to the Marketer's Brief podcast, Susan.
Thank you. Lovely to be here with you, EJ.
So we're going to talk about Tourism Australia's campaign, and I believe you guys have taken sort of a newer approach, perhaps. Your campaign seems to specifically target individual markets, including the US, UK, China, India.
That's right.
But you also used a similar structure throughout the campaign. Can you kind of talk about your overall strategy and how you're doing this?
Yes, of course. Well, look, I might actually just step back a little bit to 2022, which is when we launched the first iteration of the Come and Say G'day campaign. At that point in time, that was sort of post-COVID. Our borders had been closed for a little bit of time. We needed a big, broad, welcoming message to the world to remind them what they know and loved about Australia and to invite them down to have an amazing holiday down here. So we went deliberately broad. We looked for an idea that could cross borders, cross regions, work across languages. You know, having an animated, or rather a CGI brand mascot in Ruby the kangaroo worked really well for, obviously, for translating and for voiceovers in some of those markets. And we wanted an idea that would stand the test of time. And then cut to, here we are 2 or 3 years later working on the next chapter. And one of the things we realized is, the world is a slightly different place. Yes, we've been open for a while, but we wanted to go a little bit deeper into some of our key markets. We wanted to connect with the consumers in those markets. And one of the things that we've learned from research recently is that when consumers can picture themselves on a holiday, when they can make that mental movie of a trip to Australia, they're much more likely to choose Australia. So we looked at key source markets for holidays in Australia, and we looked at what talent might help us bring that story to life in a really, truly authentic, genuine way. So not just looking for celebrity for the sake of celebrity, but looking for someone that has a bit of a connection to Australia. So for example, in the UK, we have Nigella Lawson. In India, we have Sara Tendulkar. For all the cricket fans, you might recognize her father's name, Sachin Tendulkar, who is a total cricket legend. And of course, for the US, we have Robert Irwin, who is obviously part American, but 100% Australian at the same time, very proudly Australian. So each of these talent really helped us, I guess, connect more with that local audience. And it was all about helping show how a holiday in Australia stays with you for a lifetime and how it's something that you can't help but want to share when you get back home. So we kept that campaign construct. We had people traveling and having those experiences around Australia. We had some consistent scenes, and we did use Robert across all of our international executions as well, because he's just such a great ambassador for Australia. But yeah, same overarching strategy, same invitation to come and say good day, but told slightly differently in each of our markets with different talent. And we even, in China, we used talent, a young up-and-coming actor, singer, model, songwriter, multi-hyphenate type of talent, Yash Yu, we had him come down with sort of a group of friends, and we see two characters kind of fall in love when they meet in Australia and start their relationship. So again, just slightly different nuanced stories in each market that would appeal to the high yielding travelers in each of those countries.
We will show the work on adage.com. People can view it for themselves. But the plot similarity is the person's in Australia and they're coming back to tell their home country about their adventure,
Yes.
right?
Yes, that's right. They're sharing the memories.
How did you decide what to feature in each local market?
Yeah, it's a great question because, first of all, it's difficult because there's so much to see and do here. Australia is this big, beautiful country with a broad base of experiences from the outback to the beaches, to the cities, to all types of experiences. But we really try and understand what connects with our consumers. What are they looking for on their trips? So we have research that tells us what are high yielding travelers, again, looking for in a long haul holiday. If someone's going to go on take a multi-hour trip across the world for a holiday, what type of experiences are they looking for? So we customize each edit to make sure that it's appealing to the different markets. So whether it's, food experiences for India, a bit of adventure for America. I touched before on just the idea of romance and connection for China. So we made sure that those were built into each of the storylines.
You mentioned Robert Irwin.
Yes.
He is having a bit of a moment here in the US.
Isn't he though? I
You
know.
guys, I believe he first starting this campaign near the beginning of Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, that's right.
You're recording this the day before he's scheduled to, I believe, compete in the finale.
Yes, fingers crossed. We've got all of our fingers and toes crossed that he wins, this amazing talent. I mean, who knew that somebody was this amazing wildlife warrior was also this incredible dancer at the same time? And we didn't even know about any of this happening. To be fair, his management team, sort of helps keep his plans under wrap. We didn't know about the Bonds campaign that launched about 2 days before the team filmed with him down in the Eyre Peninsula.
And you're
And
referring to an underwear ad there, right?
yes, yes. Well, it ran in Australia and in the US. Bonds are making a play for the US market, proud Aussie brand. But that was super interesting, obviously, because that was Robert kind of coming out as this fully fledged adult, and his star material was very evident. And then we filmed and we launched the campaign, and shortly after that, the whole Dancing with the Stars piece happened, which is pretty fortuitous for us, right?
You leaned into that.
Yes, absolutely. Because, we want to make sure that we take advantage of any cultural moment and try and get a little bit more than our fair share of attention with it. Our budgets aren't as big as some of our competing destinations around the world. So we try and make sure that we get the multiplier effect, that sort of 1 + 1 = 3 by taking a media moment that Robert's having, inserting our advertising, our communications around that. And then again, he's just such a wonderful ambassador for us. He genuinely loves and is so proud of Australia, and he talks about it all the time.
So have you
And
been
we see
running
that with,
your ads during Dancing with the Stars?
yes, that's right. So we aired in the debut or the premiere of the season, and then we'll be in the finals again as well. That's right. And plus, we also have a couple other fun things kind of planned around it. I don't know if you follow our socials, you'll see that we put a microphone out at Circular Quay here on the harbor in Sydney to get people to send them his well wishes, for example. A couple other fun things kind of in the works as well.
So your agency, of course, is Droga5, who is
Yeah.
founded by one of the more famous Australian ad people.
Yeah, that's right.
David Droga. Has he taken a personal interest in this campaign? I mean, I'm not sure the year that they won this account, but have you worked closely with him on this?
Yeah. I mean, David, he's amazing. He's such a wonderful advocate. And, we obviously worked with Droga5 back in 2017 when we did the Dundee campaign, which was in the 2018 Super Bowl. And we reunited. So let's see, the pitch was, oh God, now probably a year and a half ago, it wrapped up, and we spent the next year producing the creative and the campaign. And David has been involved all the way through. To his credit, he was very involved when we did our global tender looking for the right creative partner. And part of that proposition directly from David was we're going to bring the best of Australian creativity around the globe to bear for Tourism Australia to help get our story out into the world. And we do find that when we have Australians working in our agencies around the world, that, they always give us a little bit of extra love and attention and make sure that we do the country proud. And then as we've taken the campaign forward, yeah, he's been involved. He and the team, he and Mark Green in New York, plus Matt Michael and the team here in Sydney, turning up to board meetings with us, making sure the creative is right, commenting on our edits and talent choices, et cetera. So he's definitely been guiding the team on that.
So you are not from Australia. I think you told me you're from St. Louis.
That's right.
How are you
Yes, originally.
running tourism for Australia? How long have you been here?
Well, I should say that I am also proudly Australian now as well. And I've been here in Sydney for 21 years. The accent has not changed. I very much still have my Midwestern American accent, I think. But yeah, I have fallen into an absolute dream job for somebody like me because I am selling the country and destination that I love. And to be honest, I was already selling Australia unofficially before I started at Tourism Australia. It's a job that really leans into creativity and storytelling to cut through and to build that global audience to come here. And then I would have to just take my hat off to my amazing team here at TA. They're just a dream team, a team to work with. So incredibly lucky.
We should tell our listeners, I wish they could see you. You're doing this interview, you have the famous opera house behind you and overlooking the water
And
there. Looks spectacular.
yeah, it's pretty special. Yeah, yeah. It's a sparkling, sunny blue day. Yeah, absolutely. If you look closely, you might see some of the ferries between Circular Quay and Manly floating around behind me as well.
So before you went down under, you were in Los Angeles, I believe, for a stint, and you were actually working with TBWA. And I read on your LinkedIn where you actually were there when the now famous Think Different campaign for Apple came out, and you
Yeah.
worked on the Apple account. Were you involved in that work?
I was, but it was obviously a very long time ago, and I was a baby. I was a junior burger. It was early days in my career. I was working at TBWA Chiat Day, and it was incredible. I had been at Team One working on America West Airlines back when that existed. Totally dating me here, but moving over to Chiat Day, then it was just after Steve Jobs had come back to Apple, and Chiat had won the business back, and I joined as a junior burger on the account, as they say, which was an incredible experience. I think it formed the marketer that I became. My strength around building brands, about connecting with consumers around the world, about working, cross-functionally with teams around the world as well was a skill I developed at Chiat because I started out working on the domestic business and helping roll out the Think Different campaign. I worked on the G3 Tower, which was the last beige computer that they launched. I worked on the iMac, et cetera, the iMac launch. But I realized pretty quickly, though, we needed to organize our TBWA offices around the world. So I started basically creating a role for myself in coordinating all of the different offices. And that's when I decided, actually, no, I want to make a career of this. I want to go work overseas. And eventually that translated into me getting a job in Singapore and then on to Australia. So really, I have to credit my time at Chiat Day, my time on Apple. That incredible experience really set me up for the marketer that I am now.
We'll be right back after this break.
Support for this episode comes from global sports and entertainment agency Octagon. For more than 40 years, Octagon has helped brands and athletes connect with fans through sponsorship strategy, experiential activations, and standout creative content. Recently named Sports Business Journal's 2025 Agency of the Year for Brand Consulting, the agency continues to shape the industry with ideas that spark conversation and push sports marketing forward. Learn more at octagon.com and on social media at Octagon.
So back to tourism marketing for a moment. I believe one
Yeah.
of the things you did as part of this campaign was some experiential marketing in New York City, where you sort of made use of the great American icon of the hot dog
Yes.
by creating around an Australian snag, which is the Australian version of a hot dog, I guess, sausage and
Yes.
talk about that a little bit, what you got out of it and how you're using
Yeah.
experiential marketing overall in this campaign.
Yeah, sure. Look, we were looking for ways to tell our story in fresh and different channels, places, different ways to connect with consumers. And look, we leverage digital channels, as you can imagine. We leverage social channels. We're sort of, love connected TV. So we're on everyone's screens for sure. But we thought actually a little bit of white space for us might be nice to connect with consumers in real life. Let's let them kind of touch and feel something from Australia, if you will. And as you said, yes, we took something that Americans know and love. Yes, the great American hot dog. Yes, the New York street hot dog. There is the Australian sausage and bread, or the snag, as you said, very appropriately. But then there's also this sort of food trend that's happening at the moment, not just around street food, but also kind of around gourmet hot dogs, make them a little bit special, a little bit bougie with toppings. So we sort of, crafted a menu with our chefs there to add some interesting toppings and to kind of tell a bit of a story about each of our big cities as well. and invited New Yorkers to come down, have a hot dog on us, have a chat about Australia. Each hot dog was actually wrapped in a paper that had people's memories of their time and their trips in Australia wrapped around it. So it's a conversation starter. Instead of a tip jar, the team had a trip jar where people could take out a piece of paper with a bit of a recommendation of what to do around Australia. But we also then, we had content creators down, we had a videographer there. So we turned it basically into a roaming content studio, if you will, to really bring the whole thing to life. And of course, we had to get sort of foodie content creators down there talking about it as well. The doggist came and visited, which, he obviously loves his real dogs, but, has a side hustle of looking at hot dogs as well. So it was really a really fun and interesting way to give people a taste, a touch of Australia in real life, get people to look up from their screens and experience a bit of that Aussie warm and welcoming nature.
So, CMOs often talk about metrics and the struggle and figuring out if your campaign is working. I've got to believe yours is pretty straightforward. Are you drawing more visitors to Australia? Is that the bottom line for you? And how is it going?
Yeah, look, ultimately it is. Our measures at a macro level are about arrivals and expenditure, and really expenditure is the first thing. But when you look at an activation like this, which was only a few weeks ago, you're actually looking at media metrics first. It takes time to convince people to book a long haul holiday. It's sort of a 6 to 12 month lead time or so. With an activation like G'day Dogs, we're looking at something like 48 million impressions. We've got 9 million video views. So we're the reach is there and the engagement is really strong, but we'll start to see that coming through in our brand metrics.
How about the overall
It's
campaign? How's it been performing for you?
Look, overall campaign has been fantastic. So since 2022, which is when we started, we've seen an uplift in consideration across our key brand markets of US, UK, and China of plus 5 percentage points, which is incredible. And that is where we do the majority of our brand marketing. And of course, through that period is when we've been in recovery as well. So we've seen our recovery continue to hit 2019 levels and some of our markets starting to surpass. It's not as straightforward though. Again, it's not like you're buying a soda off the shelf, or buying a computer. As I said, there's a lag time between when people start to think they're going to take a long haul trip, decide where they're going to go, and then actually book, and then again a lag until they actually arrive. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other complicating factors. When there is sort of uncertainty in the world, when there is cost of living crisis, we needed aviation access to come back. And then also we've been waiting for China to recover as well. So China opened about a year after us. So their recovery has basically followed the same trajectory as the rest of the world in terms of traveling back, not just to Australia, but back to the world. So yeah, it's sort of a complex category to measure your growth. So we look at it through a few different points to kind of triangulate as to what's happening.
And, most CMOs I talk to these days are sort of obsessed with Gen Z and still millennials to some degree. But when you look at travel, and especially if you're targeting Americans right now, that's a pretty expensive trip for a younger person. How are you approaching Gen Z, if at all? And how are you preparing to cater to them as sort of the traveler?
Yeah. First of all, I'd say Australia is an amazing destination for everyone. So whether you're coming for a more affordable trip or a luxury trip, we really do have incredible things. I'm really on a sales pitch today with you, aren't I? But anyway, I have to make sure I land that point about Australia. But look, if you're talking about younger travelers, we have things like our working holiday maker visa, where young people can come down and be allowed to work while they travel around Australia. I wish I knew about this type of travel when I was just coming out of university, because it's such a great way to be able to extend your trip. And it's also a great way to meet other travelers and other young people. And our tourism industry and our hospitality industry really love the working holiday makers because they are such a great source of labor for their businesses. So whether it's working in a pub in the outback, whether it's working on boats out on the Great Barrier Reef, these people have really wonderful experiences. They get to see the best of Australia and kind of help pay for their trip. But the good thing, sorry, I might add as well about working holiday makers is they don't come for a few weeks. They tend to come for several months to a year, or in actual fact, working holiday visas can be multi-year as well. But if you're talking about our broader target audience, it is high yielding travelers is how we describe them. And whilst we don't necessarily put an age around them, they are people who tend to spend more, they go further, they stay longer, they do more, they invest in experiences. So they're not just having a flop and drop holiday. Australia is one of those places that you really want to come and really experience it, connect with the people, connect with the land, connect with those experiences. And I would say that in the US, that the high yielding traveler does tend to skew a slightly older audience. It's a little bit different in Asia and in China, where maybe the high yielding traveler, wealthier travelers tend to be a little bit younger. But again, it kind of takes it back to that conversation we were having at the beginning around the importance of making sure that your strategy is flexible to work across markets. Again, we need to be consistent because we are brand Australia. We are promoting a country to the world that has its own unique culture and geography and experiences, but we can pivot it slightly so that it's locally relevant.
Real quick, there was a new survey out from Deloitte that said, 1 in 5 high income travelers surveyed say they're worse off financially than a year ago.
Okay.
Are you feeling that at all?
Look,
Or
I would say that interestingly, the front of the planes are still pretty full, to be honest. So I think the well-off travelers will always kind of prioritize travel. I think people start to see travel not just as something that they do, but part of actually who they are. And again, it just goes back to that definition, as I said at the beginning, they're people who prioritize travel over other things.
the other stat in this Deloitte report stated that they're expecting people using generative AI for travel planning, expecting to surge to 24% this season.
Mm.
Do you have an eye on that? And how's that affecting your marketing yet, if at all?
Yeah, we do. We definitely have an eye on that. And it's one of the things that my digital and content team and media team are looking at. How do we make sure that we are feeding the models that are already out there? So if people are going to a chat GPT, or if they're going to one of the, say, OTA type of trip planners, that, they're able to scrape our information, that they're seeing us as an authoritative source for sure. We're looking at, what is the role of generative AI trip planners, even on our own website as well, and making sure that we're giving people the best customer experience, helping them plan their best Australian holiday. So it's definitely something we're looking at, but it's such an amazing time in technology. Things are changing so rapidly as well. So wanting to make sure that we're keeping up with technology and we're investing in the right things that will make the difference for our consumers is really where we're at, and make a difference ultimately for our tourism industry.
Yeah, I've got to think the competition between all these different tourism organizations is really fierce. So how do you guys differentiate yourselves? What's the key point in this campaign that really you hope sticks with people?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think there's very strong awareness of Australia. There's a lot of latent love for Australia. If you talk to any American, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I've always wanted to go to Australia," or they're going to say, "Yeah, I know an Australian. Yeah, they're the best. I got to get down there." So there's already a deep interest in that. For us, it's about, in a market like the US, it's all about making sure that we maintain a degree of salience. So making sure that we stay top of mind. So again, taking advantage of those natural cultural moments that come up, as you said, with Dancing with the Stars with Robert, for example, making sure that we're capitalizing on those as much as possible. But it's no doubt that destination marketing has become really competitive. I think coming out of COVID, I think a lot of countries realized, when the taps were turned off for visitors coming to their country, they realized how important it was to their economy. And they've definitely kind of come out far more competitive. I feel like we've been early to the game in creative marketing, destination marketing, and storytelling. And I go all the way back to Paul Hogan in the 80s, inviting Americans to come down and say good day, which is actually where we pulled that line from for this campaign, through to what we've done with Crocodile Dundee, or even this current campaign, making sure that we're really leaning into great creative storytelling, that we're capturing Americans' hearts and building that desire for the trip here. And of course, also, making sure that we integrate with our partners to close the loop with consumers. Because again, as a tourism body, we don't transact, but, obviously we work with our travel agents on the ground, our OTAs, we work with our airlines. Qantas is a great partner, United, American, et cetera. So we make sure that our high yielding travelers are booking those flights to Australia.
You mentioned the Super Bowl ad from a few years back. Any plans to come back to the game?
It's always in the back of my mind. When can we do that? Always. I also see that price tag keep ticking up, going.
Last question for you, Susan. If you were to tell an American one place to go in Australia,
Oh, that's so hard. I would say go to Kangaroo Island. Come down, go to South Australia, go to an entire island named after kangaroos. I mean, I feel like that name alone makes it sound magical, right? But it is this incredible place that it has all different types of animals and wildlife, flora and fauna, beautiful weather, beautiful coastline, great experiences you can have. And you can go home saying you've been to Kangaroo Island.
all right, we'll have to leave it there.
Amazing. Thank you, EJ.
That was Tourism Australia Chief Marketing Officer Susan Coghill. My name is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age. I want to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio, and invite you to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite channel. We will catch you next time.
Marketers Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.